Thanks, I could just see. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the special Truth in Taxation meeting of the Logan City Municipal Council. Pleased to have you here today. Welcome to the Scouts. Appreciate that you're here, getting involved in the civic operations of our city. Tonight we only have 2 action items on our agenda. Both of them are public hearings, and they strictly relate to the consideration of a property tax increase. So I'm going to turn the time over to Rich Anderson just to give us a super quick, brief overview, but I just do want to clarify that we have been following all the state requirements in terms of noticing, etc. So thanks for being here. Go ahead, Rich.
Thank you. So we're here to first to discuss the property tax rate. It's proposed that we adopt a final certified property tax rate of 0.000965. What that would result in is a 5% increase in taxes for the library, which would raise an additional $126,283, and a 3% increase for the general fund, which would be $89,561. The additional funds in the general fund would be for inflationary increases in every single department. The increase in the library would help pay off the debt that's on the existing building. The total increase, so blended between the two, 5% for the library, 3% for the general fund, would be an overall 4.21% increase. That is on the amount that Logan City levies, which is 16%. So if you're trying to figure out how much that is on your overall property tax bill, it's about 4% of 16%, which is pretty low.
Pretty small.
The increase would be approximately $10.56 on the average residential home of approximately $505,000. On an equivalent business, it would be $19.19 per year.
Rich, could you just to remind me, the tax increase of 0.000965, when we've asked for a 5 and a 3, how does that translate one to the other?
So we adopt a certified tax rate, and that tax rate is composed of 2 components, the library and the general fund together. And so, but if you break those 2 levies apart, which I do, I have to look at those separately. It does result in a 3% increase for the general fund, a 5% increase for the library. In total, it's a 4.21% increase overall. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, if I'm not sure, I think you can look at it on the State Tax Commission website, but they do list our general.
I bet that would be fun.
It's a lot of fun. And our library levies separately.
Okay.
And really it's about half.
So what was our tax levy prior to this?
In last year, our levy was 0.00099, so it does decrease every year as property values increase.
Okay.
0.00099.
99. It's decreasing, even with the increase in the rate, it would decrease to 0.000965. If we did not pass an increase, it would decrease to 0.000927.
Thank you.
I don't know, could you maybe explain why the designers of how this works decided that way, in the sense that it's a set amount rather than a percentage?
Absolutely. So the Truth in Taxation law, I think they passed it back in the 80s, and the purpose of it was to control municipalities and how much money they received. Not necessarily how much individual property taxpayers might pay, but how much in total the city would receive. The city is entitled to receive the exact same amount we got last year, plus the taxes on new customers who moved in. So in order to keep the same dollar amount, in theory, that we receive from the same customers, as property tax values go up, the rate decreases so that we get the exact same dollar amount we received in the prior year. I don't love the law because it's difficult for individuals to see it on their property tax bill because their valuation goes up, the rate goes down, but their valuation for their particular home may not have gone up as much as somebody else, or it may have actually gone down in relation to somebody else. So the problem with that is you can have fairly large variances on the individual who's paying taxes from one year to the next. You won't hear about those people whose taxes go down, but you do hear from those people occasionally whose taxes go significantly up because their home was reassessed in the prior year. However, again, the tax law says that we as a city get the exact same amount we got as we got in the prior year, plus the new customers.
Yeah.
So who gets the extra?
There is no
There's
extra.
no extra.
The rate goes down.
Yeah.
But if people have to pay more taxes all of a sudden,
Oh, so if you and I, we both live in Logan, if your taxes go up significantly, there's a fair chance mine went down a little bit. And that is what happens. The county is able, I think, to assess properties once every 3 years or once every 5. And so mine was an off year this year. It was fantastic. Property taxes went down. But the year it's an on year, it goes up significantly. I don't love it. but
so
it's the way it
bizarre.
Yeah.
Just remind the community about when you get your tax bill, what percentages go to our school district, to our county, and then to our city.
Using rough figures, it's about 16% to Logan, about 16% to the county, maybe 18%, something in that region. And then about, what was that, leave 62 to 64% going to the school district. And so again, if we're raising our taxes, and the proposal is to raise it 4.21%, and we get 16% of their overall taxes, multiplying 4% times 16%, you'll get somewhere around 1% increase overall. I don't like doing that.
Yes, you do.
In your head.
I'm going to calculate.
Well,
Hold
and the
on.
proposed increase that, that comes to the city for this amount of a property tax increase is roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of $80,000 to $100,000, correct?
It is.
84.
So again, it's not a huge amount. I mean, you may see the increase, but it's not a huge amount, but it does help deal with inflation a little bit. So,
Yeah, our property tax increase, let's say a person's property tax bill goes up, ours is about 1% over all of that, based on what we're doing. Any other variations will be due to all those other factors.
Other stuff, yeah.
I was looking at the, Teresa, thank you for attaching the rest of the county truth and taxation hearing schedule and amounts. I noticed that ours is one of the lowest, probably the lowest if you take into consideration that the other lowest is kind of a rural city or town. Yeah. So how do we manage to, everybody's raising them more, how do we manage to raise it less?
I don't know that we've done our citizens a great service by keeping them low. So people will say low taxes, that's a good thing, and high taxes is a bad thing, but the tax amount is neither good nor bad, it's what you do with it. And to a certain extent, I think we've kept ours artificially low, and we've had to use other resources. We rely much more heavily on sales tax, and so our budgets are a little bit more variable than they otherwise would be. We've relied on that transfer that comes from the enterprise funds. That's an okay thing, but that property tax rate has dwindled. Now that is my fault. In 2008, we had such a significant downturn in the economy that it took us several years before we felt like it was appropriate to raise taxes. But I do think going forward, we need to raise it incrementally, a small amount. Something around inflation, 3%. Otherwise, I'm not sure we're doing a service to our citizens. I know everybody likes not paying money to the government, but if you don't have reliable services, if your roads crumble, if public safety is a mess, if the fire department is unable to put out fires and respond to emergencies, that's not a good thing either.
thanks, Rich.
All right, so this is a public hearing for Resolution 24-24. If anyone would like to come and speak to Resolution 24-24, please come to the microphone. We'd ask that you state your name, where you're from, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And they do need to be directly related to the proposed property tax rate increase.
And Josh Mahler from Logan. I just want to read something to you. Power lies with those who control finance, not with those who know the matter upon which money is to be spent. Thus, the holders of power are in general ignorant and malevolent, and the less they exercise their power, the better. That's Bertrand Russell. So I've been thinking about this a lot over the last week, actually 2 weeks. And I've made some suggestions about, just trying to figure out, let me start over again. I think you said it right. What we do with our taxes is important. And I don't think that the city has been really good with spending, public money at all. Over the last 6 years, we've forked out millions of dollars towards, to entities that don't need a multi-billion-dollar companies coming in here, giving them incentives to come here. These guys are multi-billion-dollar companies. They laugh at, $500,000, $600,000. They laugh at that stuff. That's not even a bonus to them yearly or to their CEOs or, to that. I think taxes they need to stay, they need to be increased when it comes to property values. And these taxes, they are going for something good. The library, yes, we absolutely need a library. Those are foundations of any society is a library. But what got us here, to where we need this funding for the library, we could have spent better in the past to be able to accommodate for this and been in a much better position. I think a library is more important than, than the Law Plaza. I think a library is a lot better than a lot of the things we've done with our money. We need to spend better, and we need to figure out a way we can fine-tune taxes. We've had a lot of developers come in here and just take advantage of our city and the money that's been thrown at them. I think we need to figure out a way that we can fine-tune taxing and actually hold them accountable for their exploitation of our city. Because every time we get a high density put in, we get more traffic. The people have to pay to accommodate for their profits, for their, for the people invested into those companies. They just walk away going, yeah, I got money now, I'm making a lot of money, investors. And the people have to pay for that. So I think we need to figure out a way that we can actually benefit from these companies coming in here. And I've got some ideas if anybody, wants to reach out to me. I do got some ideas, and I think we could do it through property taxes too. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
So Josh, just to clarify, are you speaking for or against the proposed property tax increase?
I'm still, in the middle of it. I love the idea of funding our library, but I think that we could do it in a better way.
Okay.
I understand the reason behind taxes. I totally do, because we need to be able to support infrastructure. But it comes down to how have we spent our money, our taxes in the past to get us to where we are now. And so I'm still, in wishy-washy with it. So.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that, that quasi-clarification, thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Right. Would anybody else care to come and speak to Resolution 24-24? Seeing nobody, I will bring it back to the council for action. I would like to also just ask one quick question. I did not receive any public comment on this in the proceeding. Has anyone else received any public comment? Okay.
I do have one. Oh, I was gonna say, I do have a question.
I
for
have a
Rich.
couple questions for
Yeah.
Rich too, but
Last time we met, it seems like you said the last time we raised the general fund rate was in 2010. What
The
was
library was
what was our
2017.
rate then?
I don't have that, but in 2017, our rate was .002116.
Oh, so it's down.
It's down quite a bit.
It's
Now,
down
of that, I
double.
think there was a general obligation levy that was approximately half a basis point, so it was probably around 1.5. So .0015 something
Okay.
would be comparable. And so it has dropped by a third.
A third. Yeah, at least a third, if not a half. I was curious because it said our maximum was 0.007. That's like almost 15 times
Yeah.
less than what we're
We're definitely
levying, so, yeah.
You mean in 2010? That's what it was?
In 2017, you said it was
2017. 2010, it was probably
Oh, it was-
about .002.
or higher,
But as you look at it, property values have probably doubled.
yeah.
Do cities
Okay.
have a limit on the amount of property tax they can assess?
You do. Let me see if I have that.
Is that your question?
yeah, do we have a limit? Is this as high as we? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
There is a
The
limit,
limits are
yes.
spread between the general fund and the library. The library's limit is .001. They are at .000. They will be, if we pass this, at .000462. So they're about half of what their maximum is. The general fund limit is .007. We will be at .0005, or about 14 times less than what the max is. I don't know anybody that's at the limit, but that is our statutory limit.
Well, I figured because the special services districts, they have limitations.
So that's the increased limit or the actual limit to?
That's all we
As high
can
as you
do.
can put
Okay.
by law.
Any other questions?
Yeah, can you go over what the proposed use of both these taxes is going to be? So we've got the general fund and the library. What's the plan in the budget for both of them?
In the general fund, each department gets a fractional percentage of that overall increase of 89,000, simply for inflationary increases all of them have faced.
And that's
Chlorine,
which departments for me real quick again?
that would be
The general fund, Parks and
General
Rec,
fund,
Public
Parks, all
Works,
of them.
Police, Fire.
Everything but enterprise.
Okay.
Parks and
Okay.
Rec, all of those. In the library, those funds will be used to pay down that debt slightly faster. We do have a 10-year loan, and we are on track to pay that off. Hopefully, we'll be able to pay that off in 8 years rather than 10 years. Then all of these funds.
We're on track to pay it off in 8 years, currently without this incorporated.
No, with it.
With this incorporated.
Without it, we're at 10 years.
Okay, so it'd pay it off 2 years quicker.
And
How
then
much is that loan?
It was 4 million. I think we're down to about 2 right now.
Okay. And the loan is all of that to the electric fund?
It is, yes.
All 2 million?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the interest rate on that one?
Interest rate, I can't remember, I think it's about 2%.
I've seen their budget.
Electric needs that
It's a-
money back, yeah.
2% interest
We
rate?
approved the loan through the council 4 years ago, something like that.
Sure.
And so it was in a non-inflationary time.
Yes.
Sure.
Less.
Always the big question to me is, we pay that off 2 years quicker, that 2% interest rate, how much are we saving the library fund in what they're repaying to the electric fund in the long run? Paying that off 2 years quicker, what are we saving in interest?
Not a tremendous amount in interest.
Can you give me a rough,
2% times 2 million, so.
you like math,
4,000 per year maybe.
4,000 per year? Okay,
So almost 100,000 total.
okay.
The greater concern is having enough to maintain that building. And so the plan has always been, as soon as that loan is paid off, then we need to go back to maybe a little bit of maintenance on that building, maybe an AC unit goes out, I don't know.
Start-
Hopefully not in the next 8 years.
Start setting money aside for it, yeah. That makes
And-
sense.
What's currently in library reserves right now?
They have, I think, about $1 million.
Is it 880? Is that what it was? 880,000, or is it a little higher?
880 is roughly what we want to maintain. I think I've got it just a little bit higher than
Okay.
that. At the end of the fiscal year that just ended, 2024, we paid down the debt substantially.
Okay.
But we maintained just a little bit of reserve, just in
Sure.
case something happens with the building that was unanticipated. We could come to council and use those funds. We didn't want to, there are additional funds we can put toward the loan, but we're going to be a little cautious for 1 more year.
Can I make this more complex?
Sure.
When the mayor originally proposed 3% for the library fund, that 3% was originally going to paying down the debt, all of it, all 80,000-ish? Was that the plan?
It's fundable. We really did not have an increase in what we had allocated to pay down the debt.
Okay.
That 3% mostly went just toward inflationary
Inflation
increases,
for-
raises,
Okay.
healthcare.
So the 3% was going to raise, is the additional 2%
Would go
is
toward.
looking to go towards the loan. Okay. Okay.
I would move we approve resolution 24-24.
I'll second.
Do we have any further discussion on it?
I mean, I'm going to voice my dissent before I vote a no, if I can do that. I just think, I look at it and I say, we're looking at raising taxes a little bit probably every year for the next 2 years. The library fund has sufficient reserves at the moment. And I feel like when I look at it, and the email you sent today, Amy, regarding the cost of living increase, and I know it's a small amount going on each, on average, residence taxes over the year, right? I think my house, it's like $1.80 is what it's estimated to be. But I also understand that, as Rich has said, some people are going to get a bigger raise this year, a bigger increase this year, and some people are going to get less. And I think we look at, rent's gone up 9.4% last year on average in Cache County. And so some people are going to see a substantial increase on their taxes this year, and some of those are going to be landlords who are going to pass that on to their tenants. And some of those are going to be people who are struggling to afford their houses. And I just am hesitant. I don't feel like it's pressing, is the impression I'm getting from Rich, that we need to pay off that loan right now, and that we're likely going to be looking at raising taxes again in the next year or two to match inflation. And I am just hesitant to make the move to, if that's the goal, is to just pay down the debt a little bit quicker at such a low interest rate, to put that burden on the residents who are going to see a bigger increase this year. So that's personally my concern. I understand that it's on average small, but I think for certain people it's going to affect them pretty heavily, and I think it's a pretty inflationary year and a pretty rent-heavy year in the last couple of years already. And so I'm just hesitant to tack on the extra just for debt that's a pretty low rate.
So your
Personally.
preference would be the
My preference would be a
original
3 and a 3, yeah, what was originally proposed. Because I also understand that we need to, I have no opposition to the raises for the general fund or for the library. I just think that additional 2% is unnecessary at this point.
Okay. Any other
So-
comments or questions from anybody else?
I actually would like to say thank you for being proactive of thinking of taking smaller steps that rather than a bigger chunk next year. I think when I look at my bills, it definitely hurts when it's a big chunk all of a sudden, but it's hard to explain no change in service quality and all of a sudden you're paying more. I applaud the planning that you guys have put into this and thinking of the emergency manager position, that we're still covering the health premiums for the city employees. I think that's a huge win, especially considering how much they've increased during the last 3 years. That is significant. That's a significant chunk of money that the city's still covering. And I know that historically, state, city employees are not the best paid compared to their private counterparts. So every little that we can do to retain them, to not lose top talent, it's probably means a lot to them. So, yeah.
Anybody else have any comments they'd like to share?
And I guess to clarify, I'm more than happy to vote affirmative on the 3% and 3%. I just don't know if that extra 2% is.
Well, my understanding was the 2% was not only to help pay down the debt, it was to afford the library the opportunity to be open on Saturday. Because right now they have no increase whatsoever in their personnel budget. And we know that there is an unmet need for it to be open more hours on Saturday. So my hope was that this extra 2% could help with that issue as well.
And I guess I had that same understanding that the money is available, paying down the debt is a priority, but were we to make a change and it could be utilized for operational expenses as well. It's not strictly, this increase does not strictly restrict those funds to be used to pay down the debt. But since there is not currently a plan for expanding the hours, that's where that money would reside. So it's not a clear, the extra 2% must go to pay down the debt.
No,
it's just
not.
that it's sitting there because there is no other funding in the budget right now, for example, for expanding staff or increased utilities for having the building open other hours. So,
Right.
are we ready to vote?
I am.
All right. All those in favor of Resolution 24-24,
I did second.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I seconded.
Sorry.
please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Resolution 24-24 passes. Our next public hearing is on Resolution 24-25, which is consideration of a proposed resolution approving the final revenue and expenditure budget for fiscal year 24-25 in the amount of $217,392,820. So now that the property tax rate increase has been approved, we know what those final revenue dollars will be. So although as a council we met and did preliminary approve the budget for 24-25, we now need to move into that. So at this point in time, I would open up the floor to the public hearing. Anyone who'd like to speak to Resolution 24-25.
Don't the scouts have to make a comment to get their merit badge? I believe when I was an Eagle Scout, I had to make comments in public meetings to get a merit badge.
You're putting some heat on them?
I am a little bit. So
They're looking at you like, no.
They're going to
I'll
come.
sign the paperwork for them.
All right, seeing nobody, I will bring back resolution, I will close the public hearing and bring resolution 24-25 back to the council for action.
I move we approve Resolution 24-25.
Second that.
Thank you, Jeannie and Ernesto. Is there any discussion?
I have a question for Rich. Were we under budget last year?
Always. We require every department to stay in the budget.
That's what we like.
Good call. We like that. Thank you.
I would like to echo Ernesto's earlier comments and thank Mayor Daines and our department heads for pulling together the budget. It was quite a tome, but it was good to have their comments during the hearings to explain where they were going with their departments, and really appreciate Mayor Daines, all the hard work that you and everyone has put in.
And I think the change in the way the budgeting process has been done with respect to the departments, giving them some more latitude for today and for the future, has been a very positive thing for them. So.
Any other questions or comments on Resolution 24-25? Are we ready to vote?
Sure.
All those in favor of Resolution 24-25, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 24-25 passes. We have a budget.
Yay for a budget.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. And we are now adjourned. Teresa, a minute early.
A very conservative budget too, so.